And now we move on to Module 6. Module 6, we start by focusing on what karma is all about and how karma is related to Yoga Nidra. So we recognize that for some people, the most difficult aspect of living a life of right intention or finding intention has to do with the role that it plays in the formation of karma. Perhaps they don't even kind of make that connection. In the focus of where we're moving in our life, we see that we're challenged to work with the truth that every action has both a cause and consequence. So, karma is the law of cause and effect. For every action, there's a reaction. What you do makes you who you are. So, there are a lot of different ways we can look at karma, but the primary factor that determines karma is intention, right? Because if you have an accident, that if something happens that was unintentional, there was no bad intention attached to it. But if you go out and do something that is intentionally hurting someone, the intention connects to your karma. So practicing right intention is a crucial piece in gaining peace and happiness. By living the right life and walking in your truth, by living a life of intention, you can't help but fall into the lane of happiness and peacefulness. So in the Buddhist teachings, they teach that karma is the seed of action that comes from the seed of action. It means that any word or action is either wholesome or unwholesome. And whatever it is that we do, you're planting that seed of the future occurrence that will bloom on its own accord, whether the conditions are correct. Just as a plant grows when there's a right balance of sunshine and water and nutrients, so too will the intention. So, whether the action is wholesome or unwholesome, it's determined by the intention that originated it. That's pretty common sense. That's pretty simple. And when we start thinking about karma, we try to overcomplicate it, but it really is simple. The action given is often that a knife in the hands of a surgeon is a good thing, but the knife in the hands of an assailant is bad. Each might use the knife to cut you, but one has the intention to heal you, and the other has the intention to hurt you. So we could die by the intentions of either one, but the surgeon came in with the right intention, and the assailant came in with the wrong or the unwholesome. So intention is the decisive factor that differentiates between the two. So in this view, we're much more we're much better served to cultivate the right intention. So while I'm teaching right intention and we focus on the intentions of truth, I like to refer to the fact that we're focusing on the heart's intention. Look, life is really confusing and life is really emotionally confounding. Sometimes we don't even know where these emotions come from. So the rational mind is unable to provide an absolute clear intention sometimes. Sometimes we get so stuck in the mind and we have so many mind filters or biases that come into it, we have a difficult time choosing what the intention should be or discovering what the intention should be, rather. Sometimes we try to force the intention that we think is right because somebody said that's what we should be practicing, so we try to practice it. But what we have to rely on is our intuitive knowing, what we feel from deep inside, the awakened mind heart. The teaching says we have a mind and a heart mind. So when we focus on the heart mind, our intentions are true because our mind will make up all kinds of stories and justify every path, even if they're not true. But the heart, I believe the heart doesn't lie. So it's said that a karmic seed may bloom one at a time. It might bloom immediately, It might bloom later in this lifetime or in a future life, depending on your beliefs. But what's happening in the moment is the result of the seeds planted in this life, an earlier life, or in a previous moment. Now, whatever your beliefs are on past lives or earlier lives, what we focus on in present, and that's the only thing we can control, is that there is a law of cause and effect. And that's what we need to recognize as the truth. So, whatever's manifesting itself in your life right now is affected by how you perceive it. And how you receive it is largely determined by our intention in the moment. What is my intention right now? And that puts a filter on how I'm going to move through the day. So imagine you have a difficult interaction today. If you're not mindful of your intention, you might respond to the situation with a harmful physical action or emotional reaction because we get caught up in that space of fear or panic or greed or ill will. But with awareness of intention, we refrain from responding emotionally or physically. Instead, even though we might say something unskillful, we don't cause them as much harm. Or if we have the habit of speaking harshly with the right intention, we might only have a negative thought, but we might not say it out loud. Because when we're grounded in a life of intention, we're never helpless in how we react to any event in our life. We don't so much focus on the circumstances, but how we respond to the circumstances. So while it's true that we can't always control what happens to us, with mindfulness of intention, we can mitigate the effects of what's happening around us, both in terms of the moment itself and how we move forward in our life with that thing. So when we focus on it this way, it changes that perspective. We sow the karmic seeds. We focus on the fact that, hmm, what the primary factor of determining karma is intention. So it does mean that any word or action is either wholesome or unwholesome or automatically plants a seed, and the future will blossom on its own accord when the conditions are correct. That's what we have to focus on. To truly connect with how Yoga Nidra offers solutions to the body and mind, we need to understand what the root cause is of most of the problems affecting us. And the root of it all is karma. When we focus on it this way and we see that we have this law of cause and effect, that who we are today is the result of who we have been. And that's the truth. So we need to see that. Most of us get stuck in that place where we see karma is either good or bad, but actually it's not either one. It's simply a natural law of it's simply the natural law of cause and effect on a bigger scale.
Hello, my name is Kamini Desai. I'm the Education Director of the Amrit Yoga Institute. For the last 25 years, I've been helping people master the inner dimension of their lives. We've all learned how to balance a checkbook, but rarely do we ever learn how to balance our emotions, how to steady our mind, or how to manage our reactivity. That's what these teachings are designed to help you do, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. A lot of us have some misnomers around what karma is. And most of us think of bad karma. Bad karma is going to get you. So what I thought we would do is get a little bit of a sense of what karma is, at least in this context, because it does have a lot of aspects to it. We'd see how Yoga Nidra can help shift our internal karma. All right. So first of all, let's get rid of this misnomer about karma being a bad thing. The word karma actually literally means action or as we most commonly know it, the law of cause and effect. And what you would think of this as you sow, so shall you reap. That's the idea of karma. So karma is not something that's out to get you. It's more like a law. It's a natural law like gravity. Okay. So if you act in accordance with the laws of gravity, gravity will work for you. But if you don't know how gravity works, it could inadvertently work against you. Right? So if you know that if you step off a small step, gravity will work for you, but if you step off a tall building, it's going to work against you. That doesn't mean that gravity is against you. It just means that you have not acted in accordance with the laws of gravity. Right? So what we want to do today is to learn what karma is and how we can act in accordance with the laws of karma so that we can get it on our side. All right? So what I'm going to say to you, and see if this fits for you, is karma is very simple. The idea is very simple. Close your eyes for a minute and see if this is true for you. Who you are is the result of who you have been. Does that feel true? And that who you will become is the result of who you are now. So karma is very simple. Who you are is the result of who you have been. And who you will become is the result of who you are now. So that's what we're going to be working with in a nutshell. There are actually two aspects of karma or cause and effect. There's an internal aspect, and then there's an external aspect. And both of these together lead to the effect, action, or outcome. So let's take a couple examples and you'll see what I mean. So there are many factors that would cause you to be laid off, all coming from a billiard ball effect. But in addition to all the external factors coming together, there's the internal part of it, which is how you feel about it, which will eventually cause the effect that we're talking about. Right? So let's say one person gets laid off, and you might feel really depressed about it. That's the internal part. You get scared, you get freaked out. And the result, the effect, is that you call up all your friends, you ask them to find you a job, you stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning controlling the internet for any jobs because you're freaked out, and you tell yourself, oh my God, if I don't get a job, I'm going to be homeless. Okay? So that effect is coming not just from the fact that you got laid off, but from how you responded to the event. So let's look at another example. Let's say that you get laid off, but this time your internal response is you're thrilled. Okay, you're like, oh my God, now I can go to Italy and live out my eat, pray, love fantasy and eat pasta and study Italian or whatever it is. That could have a completely different effect or action. So while this seems really obvious, the beauty of this is that it's pointing to something really powerful, and that is the internal aspect. What you do with whatever's coming to you has a very profound effect on the final outcome. And this is an unseen, most of us don't even pay attention to this. We think, well, because I got laid off, I feel crappy, or because I got laid off, I feel great. We don't recognize that it's what we're bringing to it that's actually creating the effect that we're experiencing, all right? So why this is so powerful is because it implies that if I change how I internally am with any circumstance, I could change the effect. I could change my karma, right? So this is a big pill to swallow, I get that. But I just want you to consider it for a second. There is a story about an alcoholic father who has twin sons. So the external is the alcoholic father. And one of the twin sons becomes a raging alcoholic. And when asked why, he says, well, look at my dad, right? And the other son never touches a drop of alcohol. And when asked why, he says, look at my dad. In other words, each of them had the same external circumstance, but each one of them responded to that external differently and therefore created a different outcome. They created a different karma or effect based on how they were with the situation. So you see, this internal piece gives you enormous power. It's enormously empowering because your karma is not decided for you by what happens to you. Your karma, the ultimate outcome, is determined by how you are with it. You know this. You know people who have gotten really ill, who have had cancer, or various things that have happened. And some of them collapse because of it. And some of them say, that is the most important thing that ever happened in my life. What determined the final outcome of karma? They did. So what we want to do in Yoga Nidra is we want to master this internal part of karma. Because right now, we don't even know necessarily what we are internally bringing to every situation. And very often, it's so unconscious, we are creating the same outcomes over and over without even realizing that we're doing it. Right? So an example would be, have you ever met somebody who's really pessimistic? Right? And no matter what externally happens to them, they will always bring the pessimistic attitude. And they always create a pessimistic outcome. Right? They could win $1 million. And they would still say, yeah, but I have to pay half of it in taxes. So they're always creating the negative outcome. And we all have these internal unconscious responses to life that are limiting the outcomes that we're creating. And we want to begin to gain mastery over those. In our Yoga Nidra professional training and immersions, what you will see is that we have 5 tools. And these 5 tools are designed to help you master this internal aspect of karma. One of them, intention, you learned about in another video, which I already talked about. Another one of these tools is disidentification. And one of the things that happens in Yoga Nidra is that as you go into the Yoga Nidra states, you will begin to, instead of unconsciously and automatically acting in certain pre-programmed ways from your karma, your internal way of reacting to things, you will begin to get distance from those unconscious habits and ways of thinking and being. You'll begin to be able to see them versus automatically believing them. So what I would compare it to is, let's say that you are nose to nose with a big movie, right? You can't tell the difference between the thoughts and feelings and the drama projected on the movie. But if, as in Yoga Nidra, your perspective begins to widen and move further back, you will be able to distinguish between you and the thoughts and impulses that are playing out on the movie. The further you move away, the more you can see, oh, that's a thought and impulse, but this is me. So that you can begin to see, oh my God, that's my attitude towards being laid off that's causing this outcome. And do I actually want to engage that attitude, or do I want to change it? Right? And how do I use Yoga Nidra and intention to change it? So once you begin to be able to see what your habits are and what you have been automatically believing and acting upon, you have the power to change it. The last piece that I will bring to you is that once you see that you have thoughts and that your thoughts are not you, you begin to rewrite the power relationship between you and your thoughts. Right now, most of us don't even recognize that there's a difference between me and the thoughts I'm thinking. And so when we think a thought, get cookies, we think that we're under some obligation to go up and get them, right? But if I can see that impulse to get the cookies or smoke a cigarette or yell at somebody or get into my whole self-criticism, self-denial, regret, whatever it is that you like to do, when you can see that habit and go, oh my God, that is that, and this is me, you suddenly have the choice to engage or not engage. And this is what allows you to get power back over your life so that you can begin to choose your responses to life rather than letting them be decided for you. You actually get to create your karma. If this teaching...
So when we see it from that perspective and the way it's explained, we see we have a tool that gets us to that place where we align with what the practice of mindfulness is all about. Bringing something into awareness, accept it, and then determine what you're going to do with it. So if you go through life responding to a certain person the same way over and over and over again, You need to have an awareness that there is something happening to trigger you to respond to that person the same way over and over and over again. And then you have to accept it. You have to accept that there is something, a trigger, that's making you respond to this person, and you get to determine what you're going to do with that. So you become aware, you accept, and then you have the ability to change. But as we're going through our busy life and we don't stop and pause, or we don't have a tool to get us in that space to create some space between the action and the reaction, or the event and our reaction, then we keep responding the same way over and over again because we're not aware. And if we're not aware, how can we accept? And if we don't accept, how can we change it? So, how do we change our karma if we don't even know the path that we're on right now? But we can through this practice of pausing and breathing and taking another choice. It allows you to get into that space where you're kind of burning the karma. We can focus on karma in two different ways. There's a fear-based karma and a love-based karma. Now we all want to be in that love-based space. So when we think about karma from the fear-based perspective, you reap what you sow. Karma is the consequences, both good and bad, that are brought to you based on your actions, good and bad. You're judged by your actions. A love-based karma is a gift that brings you lessons for your soul's personal growth and will continue to bring those lessons back around until you've learned them. So we can see it from that perspective that we should see that karma really is a teacher. It's getting us in that place where we need to learn and grow. So again, imagine that you have a difficult interaction today. If you're not mindful of your intention, you might respond to the situation in a harmful way. But if you're aligned with your intention, then you're creating that space where you're grounded in the intention and you're not helpless. You're not going to respond from that place of emotion. You're not going to allow the circumstances to control your response. You're going to give yourself that ability to stay connected with that intention that you have there. So again, karma is pretty simple, but it's that simplicity that challenges us. What it comes down to is who we are is the result of who we have been, and who we will become is the result of who we are now. There's no punishment involved. There are no consequences. The problem is most of us aren't willing to accept who we have been and have no idea who we are now. We don't realize that the more we criticize someone, the more we judge their actions, the more we gossip, the more we're becoming more like them or like someone we shouldn't be. So, when viewed from this perspective, we can see that our internal response to external events has powerful implications. It's not the event that determines the outcome, it's our reaction to the event. There is one truth that's undeniable. No matter what happens to us, we have the final say on how it affects us. We can't we can't change the external, but we can change the internal. So in our practice, we have to ask ourselves, what's driving our choices? Is it our emotion? Is it our habits? Is it an external influence like the expectations and judgments of people around us? Is it just learned behavior that we figure this is how we always done it, so why don't we just keep doing it this way? Hmm. In Yoga Nidra, we can connect to the power of our choices. We can connect to the power of our intentions, and we can understand how our choices determine our fate. We must always remember that every experience we've ever had, consciously or even unconsciously, is remembered in the subconscious mind. Now, we might not be able to remember it if we just think of it, trying to remember something that happened in the past. It might not, but the seed of that memory is still there. Just like a tree produces the same seeds every year, basically, our minds are producing billions of seeds of memory from our experiences. When we talk about how we form the habits of our life, how we can change the habits. We need to see that we can focus on it from the fact that we should focus on change, how we have the ability to change. But one word I want to talk about first is this seed that is sometimes called samskara. Samskara really does mean like the grooves of our life or the impressions. Like if you've ever played an LP and you put the needle in the album, it plays the same song over and over again because the grooves are made to play the same song over and over again. You can't change the song unless you move to a different groove, right? Well, in our life, these are the internal aspects of our karma. They're accumulated in our inner mind and they lay in our consciousness. But these grooves are like those layers of a hard drive. That's what this is all about. We can change. So these grooves, these samskars, aren't carried in the physical body or even the mental body, but they're deeper down. They're deep down within us. And these impressions from our life, and in some instances, the lives of our ancestors, or if you believe in previous lives, they're there. So these samskaras shape our actions, and thus they are karma. These grooves keep us going down the same path. This is why we react in the same way to most things over and over again. If we have a fear, that fear recurs each and every time we're confronted with the same situation. If we have anger towards something or someone, we generally react with anger each and every time we run into that person. If somebody tests our patience or knows how to push our buttons, it's actually not them doing it, it's us allowing them to do it because we respond the same way over and over again. So, when we think about these grooves and the grooves of our life and the way we go into these habits, we see that so many of these things are so helpful. Most of the time they are. Look, they drive our auto response. When we get in our car and drive to work, we don't want to have to look at a map and try to remember each and every time how to get there. We just automatically know. So the auto responses are so many things about how we move through our life are important. Um, and then the other thing is we kind of get acclimated into our lives, into these grooves. So a person living in a place that it's really cold reacts to the cold differently than somebody living in a place that's really hot. So someone living out in the country is going to have a different reaction to the darkness and the silence than somebody living in the middle of a city. So each and of every one of us learn and assimilate to our environment so that we can function where we are. We become acclimated, and these are helpful. They're so helpful, and we want to hold on to them. But there's a small percentage of them that are not helpful, and they actually work against us. And it helps to recognize it. As we practice mindfulness, we become more aware of how we have these auto reactions to certain people or certain things or certain events in our life. And we begin to recognize those times when we get defensive or sad or act out of habit. Well, in Yoga Nidra, we can take it to the next level and realize these old patterns can be changed. Yoga Nidra is like the door that opens us up for something new to show itself. These grooves and these habits are located in different places within our being. Our wisdom body would logically allow us to discriminate between what's real and unreal. But if our past is coloring the present, then we're living in the past as if it's happening now. Not only perceived through the filter of the past, but through the way we're seeing things in the present, because we keep carrying the past forward into the present. So we're really living in the past in the present. When we carry the past into the present, we're living in that past and repeating the same old patterns over and over again. So even though the past isn't present, we're moving in the present as if the past is here. We fall victim to that habit, to that past. And that all happens at the wisdom level. Once we can't distinguish between the real and the unreal, it depends to affect the next kosha. So say for instance we're cheated on in a past relationship, right? Somebody hurt you. And we carry that hurt forward and we carry those feelings and memories into a new relationship. We haven't resolved those feelings from the past relationship, so they start to come up again in the new relationship. And if we carry all those memories of being hurt forward, then we begin to think that we're going to be hurt again. And that's in the mental layer. We feel as if we're being hurt again. And that's at the energy level. So our energy flows back into all those feelings we previously had, and we feel that pain rising up, and we feel it in the physical being. But the truth is, it's not real pain. It's that phantom pain because it's there and we fall victim to it. It just seems real. So what remains is an impression or an echo of the past event. And we repeat the same reaction over and over and over again. Once our perception is skewed that way, our thoughts follow that through. And they tend to circle around these false perceptions because it's familiar, it's habitual, it's what we've done before. Sometimes, even if we try to tell ourselves it isn't real, it doesn't change because these repeated patterns are there through habit. They're deep within us. We keep following that path over and over and over again. Yoga Nidra helps us pull out of those grooves by taking us into that place of reason, beyond the constructs of the habitual mind. So when we want to fix something, how often do we try to fix the symptom? And that's the problem. That's the problem with modern medicine today. We're guided to take all these remedies to take care of the symptoms rather than to dig deep and get into the cause. So when we're thinking of it from this perspective, perhaps it's interesting to think of it as the grooves of our life, the habits of our life, and the way we respond, how we're moving through our life is like the Colorado River going through the Grand Canyon. And there's no way we can pull out of that groove. We keep just getting deeper and deeper, following the same old path. But in meditation and in Yoga Nidra, it's almost as if we rise above those canyon walls and we go back up to the source, to the root. And then we see what's causing the same old habits or the same old reactions. And then we choose a different path. And as soon as we choose a different path, a couple of times, and then a couple more times, and then a few more times, suddenly we're digging a new canal, digging a new canyon. And after a while, the old canyon, the old river dries up, and we're following a new path. And that's how we change the habits. That's how we change the karma. So we could spend our whole life chasing karma and trying to fix ourselves, individually chasing one feeling after the other, spending all of our time easing the tension away from the body. We could spend countless hours focused on dealing with our emotions and our thoughts, trying to resolve this one before the next one takes over. We could chase our perceptions and interpretations of the world and of people and of politics, of everything an entire lifetime has given us and not get anywhere. But if we focus on the root, we could find a better solution. We could start digging a new path. Each of these things, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, expectations, are like the leaves on a plant. And we could spend all our time trying to polish and clip those leaves. But if we don't take care of the root, if the roots aren't healthy, then how is the plant going to thrive? Change the root, and the entire plant changes. That's what we're doing. And this is what Yoga Nidra is designed to do. Yoga Nidra, we're working on the root rather than the leaves. We aim to build a healthy root. And when we do, the stems and the leaves start to flourish. That's what our practice is all about. This is how Yoga Nidra is designed to work. The answer is the problem. Find where the problem came from, and we find the answer. The reality is the more we do something, the more we stay the same. The basic principle of samskara is that it becomes stronger and deeper through the process of repetition, and it becomes weaker with change. What you practice grows stronger, and what you stop practicing starts to go away. That's what we practice in mindfulness each and every day. That's what it's all about. When we first experience something, a deliberate action in response happens. But if the action is repeated over and over again, it just becomes automatic. So we want to lift ourselves out of that space. We want to turn off the autopilot. And at some point, we have to realize that the habitual way of doing things is taking away our choice. The decision is made, and this is how it's done. But we want to change that, and we want to reawaken choice. Come back to that place where we are choosing how to move forward. We're making that choice.
Karma is the Sanskrit word for action and is the law of cause and effect. It is the equivalent of Newton's laws of motion. Every action has an equal reaction. We all have an abstract understanding of karma. It is what we refer to when we say what goes around comes around. However, this begs the question, how do you attract good karma into your life? Well, there are 12 little-known laws of karma that will change your approach to life. Number 1, the Great Law. Similar to the law of attraction, the Great Law of karma means that you receive what you put out into the world. That is, you reap what you sow. If we desire honest relationships, we have to be candid and authentically ourselves first. If you long for happiness, act accordingly and share your joy with others. If it's financial abundance you seek, be generous without expecting anything in return. Number 2, the law of creation. Life requires our participation. Everything around us is the creation of someone's intentions. Even our lives are the result of our own inner state, although it happens unconsciously for most people. Therefore, we cannot wait for things to happen. Instead, we must put in the action to make them happen. Finally, surround yourself with what you want, so it is conducive for your desires. Number 3, the law of humility. Of all the laws of karma, Buddhism emphasizes the law of humility. The karmic law stresses acceptance, which is a near universal virtue. That is, we must accept what is before we can change it. Number 4, the law of growth. Real change can only occur when we change who we are inside. As above, so below, and as within, so without. If we want to see growth or change externally, we must be committed to changing internally. The good news is that we have absolute control over ourselves, and our growth is beyond any circumstance. Number 5, the law of responsibility. You are the source of what happens around you, and the outside world mirrors our internal state. If chaos surrounds you, then there is turbulence within, and the only way to bring peace is to find peace within. The law teaches us to take ownership of the state of the world around us, as only then can we change it. Number 6, the law of connection. Often, we give more meaning to an aspect of our lives over another. We might cherish the present over the past or think the future will be better, unlike the here and now. However, one of the laws of karma, the law of connection, emphasizes the interconnectedness of the past, the present, and the future. Neither the first nor the last are better, as they were both required to accomplish the task. Number 7, the law of focus. Our minds cannot follow multiple trains of thought and be equally proficient. Therefore, it is best that you focus on one goal, the central goal, over multitasking. The karmic law of focus also teaches that you cannot focus on higher and lower values simultaneously. We cannot harbor negative emotions and expect to grow spiritually, and we must direct our full attention to what we desire. Number 8, the law of giving and hospitality. The law teaches that there will come a time when you will have to demonstrate your beliefs. It encourages one to ensure that their actions mirror their beliefs. Number 9, the law of change. Have you ever been at a point where situations keep repeating themselves and nothing seems to be changing? As if life is telling you something by repeating the same situations. Well, in a sense, you understand one of the laws of karma, the law of change. History will repeat itself until you put positive energy to direct it elsewhere. Number 10, the law of here and now. The karmic law of here and now teaches us to be entirely in the present moment. It recognizes that at any time, the here and now is all we ever have and is to be engaged with and enjoyed. Focusing on the past leads to regret, while having one foot in the future results in anxiety over the unknown. Come back to the here and now, as it is the only place you can truly live. Number 11, the law of patience and reward. He who masters patience masters everything else. George Savile. Good things come to those who wait, and you cannot replace patience, persistence, and hard work with wishful thinking. You have to be willing to do the heavy lifting to create any value. Number 12, the law of significance and inspiration. The law teaches that no matter how insignificant we might feel, we contribute to the whole, and the universe will be different without our contribution, no matter how small it seems. It is one law that you should reflect on when you need a motivational boost. The law also teaches us that the value of any venture is the result of the energy and intent directed towards it. Following these laws of karma will ensure that you attract good karma and that your contribution as a whole is a positive one.
So as we take a step in that direction and we see that we can fall into that space where in Yoga Nidra, we reawaken the choice we have. Our neural pathways are shaped by our behavior. So whether you call them samskara or grooves or rivers of our life, the pathways are shaped by our behavior. They truly are our neural pathways. The more we do something, the stronger the pathways become. And over time, the alternate routes wither away. Through neuroplasticity, though, we see that we can overwrite those habits and change them. Our decisions and our choices take the routine rather than the road less traveled. So our karma tends to follow the same route over and over again. The other avenues are dried up and they don't seem to appear after a while. This is how past karma shapes who we become. If you only have one option, then you just follow that path because all the other options are hidden away, like he can't see over the sides of the canyon. We identify ourselves by the path, the river, and the river of our life throws through this canyon because that's how we see it. But Yoga Nidra gives us the opportunity to disidentify ourselves from the routine and from the route by focusing on intention. By shifting our focus to intention, we have the ability to shift the direction we're going. At first, we can't see any clear path because the canyon wall is so high. But in Yoga Nidra, we rise above. We go to a new level and we have an elevated perspective where we begin to see those new pathways and we turn towards intention. And intentionally is essentially a new, more helpful groove that, when repeated, becomes a new pathway for our mind and for our body and for our life to follow. Intention is the tool that we can use to rewrite the karma, to change our life, to change the pathway, to change the habits and the addictions and the responses and all the same old, consciously directing the field of possibilities, aligning them with our intention. We have the ability to reawaken the fact that we have a choice. We always have a choice. We can't always choose our circumstances, but when we focus from this perspective, we can always choose how we respond. Always. That's the truth. We want to disidentify ourselves from the route that we've always taken by focusing on intention. If there's one thing you take away from this, is you go back to the studies of what you practice grows stronger. How scientific studies now show that when we change repeated behavior, we have the ability to rewrite and restructure the mind. Through neuroplasticity, we're finding new paths and new grooves. And Yoga Nidra, when done with intention, allows us to get into that space where we start building neural pathways that are aligned with intention rather than habit. That's where we're bringing the subconscious and the unconscious in connection with the conscious, making a conscious choice to connect to the intention, that the intentions that we carry deep within ourselves, connecting our heart and our mind, and choosing a path that always keeps those two things connected. And then we're living a life of intention. That's what this is all about. Creating a new habit, a more helpful groove that, when repeated, becomes a new pathway for our brain and for our body and our heart and our soul to follow. And intention is the tool that we use to rewrite the karma and consciously direct the field of possibilities to be aligned with intention. That's what this is all about. And I'll see you in Module 7.